This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. She has definitely been a beacon of light and also healing for many since we've gotten together. And it has centered around challenging relationships involving narcissism. She's written books about it, how to navigate through relationships. We're going to sort of change it up today and focus on growing up in a narcissistic environment. Maybe you have a parent or had a parent that was a bit narcissist, or maybe it's or a sibling or somebody that was there, but you didn't even realize it. Certainly as a kid, not on your radar. She is our professional of the year. Sherry Canino is back with us. How is everything going by you today?
I'm well, Steve. How are you doing?
Really good, really good. And this is a topic that many forget about. We focus on relationships, and certainly, for me, based on your insight, experience, and descriptions, now my radar is up, even looking back years ago in relationships, like there was a narcissistic trend there, or those who may have called me one. I'm not. I know it. I'm very transparent. If I thought it was me, I'd say, yeah, that's me. But it was probably them deflecting and putting focus off of them. Growing up in that environment got to be challenging. I mean, we talk about the traumas that we've had as children, and not just narcissism, but any kind of normal growing up environment can have trauma if you internalize it that way as a child. And we've all had them in some way, in some form. But a narcissistic parent can't even imagine what that might be like.
Well, and I think you don't know what you don't know. And my son and I actually just had this conversation the other day where, he said, I missed life when I was like 5 because I only had 5 years of trauma in my life. And I said, that's very true. That's very true. Without a doubt, was I a narcissistic parent? Like, I'm gonna point the finger at myself a little bit here. I see traits that I had that were either more borderline or narcissistic, because you can't grow up in that environment and not take some of that with you.
Well, and that's anything. That doesn't have to be
right.
A narcissist. That could be your father's sense of humor, and one day you turn around like, oh, that's kind of me. I do that, or we all done that. Yeah, I am my mother. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that we don't see it because we're over here parenting, trying to like do things differently. But what the child is seeing is how we behave. So my son spent a lot of time with my parents, with me, with my parents, and seeing me being a people pleaser. And, that's a fawning response from growing up in a narcissistic, can't even say it, narcissistic, abusive home. Well, what do you think he is? What do you think he grew up to be? Of course he grew up to be a people pleaser. 1,000%. So, you don't know what you don't know. And looking at my parents, my mom always, 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 my dad wasn't around. Oh, your dad's abusive. Your dad's this, your dad's that. And a lot of the things that she did, she projected onto him. And basically, it was always like that whole I don't know, triangulation, if you will. So she would say to us when he wasn't around, all the things that most of the things that it was her that she did or she was being, and she would blame it on him and say he's the bad guy. But then when he was in our space, oh, you have to love your father. It's your father. Talk about cognitive dissonance as a kid. Like, I grew up hating my dad, absolutely hated him. I was like, he's mean, whatever. And now at 52, I sit back and I'm like, it wasn't him.
Mm.
Every time my dad was around me alone, he was so good to me. When I moved out of my house and in with my first narcissist and I didn't have any money and, whatever, I was living in the ghetto, he was the one who came downtown looking for me, would be like,
Wow.
here, I know you're like, I wish you would just come home. He'd be like, here, take some money. Just like, I'm worried about you. You know,
Mm.
he was the one who pulled me out of that abusive relationship back when I
Wow.
was in New York City and had almost, been strangled to death. He was the one, not my mom. It's him. I didn't even have to tell him. He just like, he heard it in my voice and he was like, can you get to the bus station? I'm gonna send you a ticket tomorrow morning. Just get there. So I see the light now, but it sucks because, he's passed. And so I never really got that time. So there's a lot of like, when he passed away, I had a lot of grieving around not just losing him, but losing the opportunity to actually have a relationship with him. Because narcissistic borderline moms do not want their daughters to have relationships with their father.
Okay, deep question time, which we always have anyway. Um, what was your mother's relationship with her father?
Actually, great. She loved her dad. It was her mom that was super, super abusive and absolutely hated her. My mom was like the middle child of seven, and her mom, I mean, she mimicked her mother. So her mother hated the girls, most of them, hated her daughters, loved her sons. My mom was the same way. The only daughter that her mom really liked was, well, just like my mom, the oldest and the youngest. Anybody fell in between, forget about it.
Are you saying that your mom was, in your mind, yeah, looking back here, definitely a narcissist?
She was definitely had borderline personality disorder and high narcissistic tendencies. Yeah.
Hmm. You know, this is an eye opener for many, especially from divorced families, where many times there's alienation. One parent will be talking about the other one and making that other one, whether that whether that parent is a narcissist or not, it happens, the alienation happens all the time. But how many might see or hear this and then look back and think, well, that parent, mother, father, wasn't actually what I thought they were. I was led to believe that's what they were.
Hmm.
Big wake up.
And you're too young to know this, but narcissists always rat themselves out. They always rat themselves out. My mom used to say, one day you guys are going to wake up and realize that your father's the like the good guy. I forget exactly the terminology, but she's like, you're going to hate me and love him. She went wrong. She went wrong. I mean, I don't hate my mother. I don't. But there was a period of the healing journey where I was like, mm. Little bit.
Well, interesting. It really is. Once you start thinking about all of this, I think I shared with you, I'm in this men's group and we did a retreat last year, the first one. I mean, I just signed up and then I flew away halfway, not
Yeah.
halfway, across the country. And we use our father's last names to address each other, to honor your father, whether you liked him or not. But
Mhm.
there was a moment there where we were tasked with, and these were like long sessions all day, morning to night,
Mm.
tasked with looking at the good that came from your father. It could be any, could be your mom too, but this was the focus on father, um, whether you liked him or not. But when you start looking at it, through a different lens, my point here is that you see things differently. We just go through life as we were conditioned as kids, and we just keep going with that every day, same deal,
Mhm.
until you take a moment. It's almost like you're driving your car down the road. Well, let me pull off the road for a moment here. Just let me take a look around where I'm driving, and then it comes to you. And for me, I wasn't close to my father. My parents got divorced when I was very young. Um, there's probably a lot there that I didn't realize because through relatives on my mother's side was led to believe certain things. But my wake up was the last day of that event, that retreat. I'm so far. My dad passed when I was 21. I realized it was his birthday, the last day of that retreat.
Mhm.
For me, it was almost like I was supposed to be there to have these realizations, and it happened to be. I don't think there's any coincidence on his birthday. Um,
Yeah.
but this is giving us a lot to think about, whether it's narcissism or not, you know,
Mm.
in our
Yeah.
childhoods.
Yeah. Um, I think there there are or were a lot more borderline moms out there than we actually realized back in the day, my era or earlier. Um, because people parented a lot different, if you will. And there was a lot of, I don't want to say neglect, but in a sense, my mom grew up on a farm, a dairy farm. She had to get up every morning, milk cows before she went to school. There wasn't time for people to be um emotionally there.
Mm,
Kids were like want to seen and not, not heard, like do whatever. We don't want to see you. We don't want to be bothered with you. There was an emotional support and nurturing going on back in the day. It was like we had a bunch of kids because we got a farm and we need workers. So, I mean, I can't, it's never, in the words of Gabor Mate, it's never that we blaming the parent because I do believe we all do the best that we could do with what we have to work with at the time.
hmm
And you just don't know what you don't know. And so, you know, were our parents or, just like me, was I like intentionally trying to like be narcissistic to my son or show him how to behave in a narcissist, in the not a healthy way? Of course not. Like knowing what I know now, gosh, I'm like, there's about a million things I'd do different if I could turn back the time. But clearly I can't. So I have to just go forward. But, taking accountability and understanding and then being that sounding board and also bringing things to him and being like, I actually see, like, I did this, I see what I
mm,
did. you know, that's, I think, a big for kids, especially adult kids, if you've ever grown up with parents that like never can say that they're sorry for things that they did that hurt you. I think it's a big deal for adult children, and I think that's a big part of like really healing the bond between you and your kids if you can see it's not about the children making you feel bad for what you did. It's about holding space for them and like, yeah, it wasn't right. It wasn't good. Some of the stuff wasn't good.
Um, we've identified a number of times today and in the past that we as parents pilot from what we learned from our parents. If one of your parents was a narcissist, is there a high probability that you might be one too, or is that one of those things that it's not a learned situation? It's in your DNA, maybe genetics. I don't know.
So it's actually known scientific fact that, you know, um, just like any other disease, I guess, if you will, mental illness is contagious, but that doesn't mean that you're actually going to be a narcissist. It means you're going to have some of those traits until you recognize that you have those traits and work on them. So you definitely can walk away from your childhood. And even more so if you're still in a if your parents are alive and you're still in that, relationships with one or the other that or both that maybe have some sort of, cluster B personality disorder. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's, I think Professor Sam Vaknin calls it narcissistic fleas, which doesn't sound too good, but that's what it is. They get on you in a sense. Um, Part of it is a survival, a coping mechanism to, you know, survive in an environment like that. The other thing I think really is just that kids just do what they see. It's never, we talk about this all the time. It's never like, do this because it's better to do this. They're going to do what they see you doing. And so, I have friends who have to co-parent with narcissistic parents, and
Mm, hmm.
they constantly, they're like, I'm the bad guy. I'm always the bad guy because the child, when it goes to the narcissistic parent's home, he or she has to navigate that parent to get love in a very unfortunate way, so they're always trying to appease that parent. So if the parent is like, I don't like your mother or I don't like your father, the child is going to behave in those ways towards the mom or dad that the narcissistic parent is saying don't like to gain love from this impossible parent. And it really does. I mean, it just does a number on the kid because they don't know which way is up. It's
Mm.
so like, they go home, maybe they're living with the parent that's non-narcissistic. They know that parent loves them. That parent gets the brunt of everything because they, the child subconsciously knows this is this safe parent. So when they leave, they go for a weekend to the other parent's house, they come back all screwed up in the head.
Mm.
Their nervous system is a wreck, and they come home and they have to download it. So where I think they're going to download it to. It's a
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot. I even, Professor Sam Vaknin will say narcissism should be punishable by law. They do. It is abuse. It used to be, my son's biological father got diagnosed as a narcissist and he did not get visitation. But in this day and age, I don't know. I mean, it's become such a buzzword that I don't think anybody really takes it seriously.
Mm.
But if they say, if it's true that of the diagnosed ones, it's about 2 to 4% of the population. I think I did the math, and that's over 240 million people. So when you break it down like that, I do think that our society is becoming much more and more narcissistic, whether people are actually diagnosed or not. If you've got high traits.
You bring up an amazing point too, that it's become a buzzword where I think it's gotten watered down, where we don't realize, the impact. It's easy to say, yeah, it's a narcissist, yeah, and then you just move on from that. But you really got to go back and look at what's going on there and how it's shaping lives, ruining lives, relationships, all of that. There's so many different aspects of a narcissist. It's abuse. It's abuse. That's what we again, the term is thrown around so loosely now. Good in that we're aware of it, bad in that it's gotten watered down and we don't even think of it as being emotional abuse.
Yeah, well, there's a great number. I mean, so like these individuals, they're stunted, right? They're stunted in their mental and emotional growth. And so we're, as a society, we're trying to function. We're trying to parent with parents, whether it be the mom or the dad, who are literally like little kids. So how do we do that? They they don't want to pay bills. They don't want to do the things they're supposed to do. They don't want to parent the kid. They don't want to, if it's not fun for them, they don't want to be with the kid. But they don't want you to have the kid because it's like,
because you're getting all the fun.
Well, they view it as it's like a toy, an object. So like, oh, you want that? Well, then I want that. Parents don't know how to navigate this. We probably could do a whole segment just on parenting with a narcissist because it's just, it really is. I don't know. If you're trying to be the adult, you got 2 kids you're dealing with.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, there you go. And like you said, acting like a child, number one narcissist trait, they want all the attention. So what's a child? Me, 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 me. They cry, they'll, throw their arms up. It's all about them they're a child. It's understandable, but now these people are adults and looking for the same exact thing. We're looking for you. Thank you for breaking this all down and sharing all this insight. Somebody's going through some challenges. Maybe they've had some realizations today or past times we've gotten together. How do we find you, Sherry? What's the best way?
My website is soulfullywild.com.
Starts with a conversation. You've lived it. You've been there. You understand. Anybody, if you're thinking about maybe making some changes or thinking about how to deal with a now you realize it's a narcissistic situation. Start the conversation with Sherry. This is what she does, and you've lived a journey, and I gotta
we
say,
all have. We all have.
We all have. But I appreciate your transparency in it all to talk about it, and also to pen some fabulous books. And you're here to help, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here again today.
Appreciate you.
Likewise. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.